Welcome everybody. My name is Simone Hodgkinson. I'm the Group Fitness Supervisor for the Glencoe Club, and I've had the luxury of teaching health and wellness, group fitness, personal training and yoga for a total of 33 years now. 34 years, oh dear. And I must honestly say that having started out as a fitness instructor and a personal trainer, I firmly believe that I would not have lasted this long in the industry without the gift of yoga. And in the philosophy of yoga, there is the limb of meditation. So meditation is a very, very powerful tool. And tonight's session is called Interrupt Your Thoughts. So I'm hopefully going to give you some tips of how you can take a break from that constant chatter that goes on in the brain. And the problem with the constant chatter in the brain is that, unfortunately, it's not always the most positive chatter. And I guess that what I should share with you is that my major is in sports psychology. So I have a real fascination with the brain. And, personally, for me, I found psychology at a very young age because I had to master my own brain because I was a migraine sufferer as a child. So as a child, I was hospitalized for migraines and they weren't quite sure what it was. Found out it was migraines. It was linked to my parents getting divorced. And then my mum died when I was 15 years old, and the migraines came back with a vengeance. So I learned how to control my blood flow and how to take control of my thoughts so that I didn't have all this pressure going on in my head. So the mind is it's so important to me, and I'm very passionate about controlling the mind so that you can live a very fulfilled life. So when we look at the brain, the first thing that I must share with you when we talk about the brain is that it only knows what you choose to feed it. So think about that. Your brain only knows what you choose to feed it. And we know that from an academic point of view, but I'm not talking academics here. When we talk about the brain, it's programmed by you. And unfortunately, you have programmed your brain based upon your childhood beliefs, the beliefs of your parents, and based on, what you were brought up or how you were brought up to believe. So your brain is programmed by you. That's really important because if the brain is programmed by you, you can undo that programming. It doesn't happen overnight, but it definitely can happen. So it only knows what you tell it. So in simplest of terms, the brain doesn't really know the truth because the brain only knows what you have told it. Your truth comes from that wonderful gut reaction that you might have, or that unsettling feeling that you might have. We know the truth, but it doesn't come from the brain. The brain only knows what you have told it. So if you've told it the same story for many, many years, that's what it believes. And that's really important because you can change that. You can so change that. The other second and most important thing to understand about the brain is that it really enjoys stimulation. It's like those who enjoy coffee. Your brain, it thrives for stimulation. So it's always going to seek ways to make you think. It's also really attractive to all these bright lights that we have coming from our iPhones and our computers, and our Western world is so overstimulated that our brains are constantly overstimulated. So now we live in a place where we're never not thinking. And because you're never not thinking, you've got no peace. You've got no escape from all those pre-programmed beliefs that you're not good enough, or this might not happen, or you're going to worry about this, or your negative self-talk. You've no escape from it because the brain is so overstimulated. And we really, now more than ever, we really need to take a hold of that. So the constant thoughts, when we look at thoughts unfortunately build stress in the body. So there's a direct correlation to what you think and how it manifests itself in the body. So, I mean, depending on how deep we go, but, you know, there's a lot of connection to, you know, that pain in your ear and that sore throat can be deeply connected. But if we just stay on the simplistic form of your thoughts, those thoughts that go on constantly are manifesting themselves in your body, and they manifest as stress. And then stress builds up in the body. And if you're living with constant worry or even constant sadness, those thoughts manifest as stress. That stress manifests as aches and pains to begin with, and then moves on to injuries and disease. And obviously we know that thoughts, the biggest problem for most of us is that they keep us up at night. So it's a real vicious circle, because if you don't get your correct sleep and you don't get cellular health, then the body's going to deteriorate anyway. So we really have to find a way to interrupt those thoughts. And the number one way that most people think about is, well, I'll meditate. And I will get to that. But before we get to that, there is something that we can do that is incredibly practical, that we can do anywhere, in the supermarket. Well, my English is coming out now. I should say in the grocery store. In the grocery store, we could do this. In the car, we could do this. At the dinner table, in a restaurant, we need something practical that we can do. And when we do something that we call mindset training, it's a form of psychology, and it starts by noticing. So the average person goes about their day on automatic pilot, constantly thinking, and they really don't notice what they're doing. So when we start to take control of the thoughts, without meditation, if we're going to control the thoughts, the first thing we have to do is actually notice that we're thinking and that we're overthinking. And as soon as you start to notice your thoughts, you're also going to notice that you've got different egos that generate different thought processes. And those different egos are related to worry, fear, anger, frustration. And in any given day, you will be a variety of all those different egos. You might be frustrated, you might be worried, you might be sad, you might be angry. They're all different egos that live within us, and they're all present usually most days. The difference is, or the important thing is, that you need to identify in you what is the main ego that you reside in every single day. Or how I put this to my kids is, who is driving your bus today? And that's what you need to start to figure out. And when you're figuring out who's driving your bus today, you want to give it a label, because as soon as you start to label the ego that's creating the thoughts, you can detach from it. And that's a number one lesson to start detaching from the thoughts, is to give them a label. So for example, you might be in an ego state that you're going to label worrying Wanda. The ego state that I used to live in most of the time, I labeled as overthinking Olga, because I always overthought everything. Well, this could happen and that could happen. And then what about this? And then I should plan for that, and always overthinking. So you might have overthinking Olga. You might have worrying Wanda. You might have frustrated Frank. You might have angry Alan. But if you can start to identify what ego state you're in and give it a label, that's a really, really vital step forward to actually interrupt. Because the one thing that we have to do to take control of this incessant thinking is we've got to interrupt it. And you can't do that if you're just going along with the thoughts. So if you can start to notice, oh my God, I'm really worrying. Oh, that's worrying Wanda driving my bus. You've already interrupted that thought. You've already created a slight pause. And the more you do it, that pause between the thoughts gets a little bit longer. And that's a technique that you can do while you're talking to yourself all day, because we all are. We're constantly talking to ourselves, feeding ourselves a story. And the more you can identify your ego and label it, you've kind of shined a light on it. And if you shine a light on it, you've interrupted it. And you've kind of moved it to the back of the bus. The other thing about your ego states is they're quite powerful, because remember, they've been programmed by you over periods of years. So you might be able to say, oh, I can see, I'm feeling frustrated. That's frustrated Frank. You know, he's there. I can feel that. And you've noticed it, great, but then you're still going on, you know, telling yourself why you're frustrated and what's frustrating you. And you're back in that thought. So what we do once we've identified, oh, here I am in this ego state, frustrated Fred, worrying Wanda, overthinking Olga, wherever you are, oh, I'm overthinking. Then as your brain starts to say, if I do that, I'm scared that this might happen and this could happen, and that I can't do that because of whatever story you're telling yourself. If you can counter it with a technique that we call what if. So if I'm overthinking about something, and that could happen, and then that's going to go there, and then what if they reject it? If I can notice, oh, I'm overthinking, and then I start again, if I can counter it with, well, what if that didn't happen? What if it actually worked out okay? When you throw that in, the brain is a bit like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. I'm so used to thinking it's going to go wrong, or I'm so used to being angry, that when you give it the what if scenario, you stop it in its tracks. And that's basically how you beat down those incessant thoughts that you have that are impacting your decisions on a daily basis, or impacting your mood and your joy for life. And using that what if is in every single scenario. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. What if it's okay? What if that doesn't happen? What if I do feel happy? What if I can be happy? What if I can feel safe? So, and you have to do it repeatedly, because any of these techniques, they don't work by doing them for one day. In the same way that your brain did not get programmed in one day. It's a daily, repeated notice, oh, there I go again, overthinking. And it's a little bit like dealing with a naughty child, or a toddler whose emotions are out of whack. We are all adults with our emotions and our mental health out of whack. and we're on this thought process. So we need to give it a distraction. We need to counter it with the what if, and then we need to give it a distraction. So if you counter and give it a distraction, you've interrupted those thoughts. And that's what your what if is about, is trying to give it a distraction. You throw that into the mix and the brain's like, oh, okay, yeah, but in the past, this has always happened. What if this time around it's different? Oh, yeah, but last time this happened. What if it doesn't happen like that next time? So it's like you're really dealing with a naughty child or a teenage brain. It's an emotional brain, because all our egos are emotional states, and they're not a rational way to think. But that's where we're in. That's the pattern we've got ourselves into. So that's the technique or a daily practice that you can do to start notice your ego states that's driving your bus that day. And when you're in that ego state, interrupt it by using the what if scenario, and just keep throwing the what if at it. Because the more you highlight what you're doing, the more those thoughts will dissipate. And as I say, it's the rest of your life practice. It's not a one-day practice. Another thing that we can do when we look at controlling the thoughts is, of course, meditate. And meditation is a practical application. It's not something that you might do. I'm going to contradict myself here, but I was going to say it's not something you might do while you're walking around the grocery store, but it actually is, and I do frequently. But in the beginning, most people think about meditation as something that they need to be in a quiet space and they need to set the time for. And that's true. That's where we do need to begin. And the premise behind meditation is very, very simple. We're basically trying to hang out in the gap. We've got incessant thoughts constantly. Meditation is designed to interrupt those thoughts, and then we can hang out. Here are the thoughts. Here's the gap. Let's hang out in that gap. Oh, and when you do, it's so nice. It's so nice. And as somebody who's meditated for many, many years, doesn't mean that you're always hanging out in that gap. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have an irrational day or an emotional day. You're still going to bounce backwards and forwards. You are never living in this constant state because the world is so overstimulated. You're fighting every single day to bring yourself down from all that massive stimulation we have. So the main intention of meditation is to interrupt the thoughts so you can hang out in the gap. And, some people are very good at that and some people are not. And that's okay. There are no expectations when we meditate, so that's already a bonus. We might not do it so well one day, but there's no judgment and there's no, at all, we do not expect anything. And if we go in with that mindset, then whatever we do will be good enough. And, sometimes I'll say to my husband, what are you thinking about? And he'll say, nothing. And I'm like, I hate you. I hate you. How can you just do that? How can you just not be thinking about nothing? And my kids joke because they say, oh, well, Dad's just got static in his brain. He's just like, because my husband does not overthink typically on a regular basis. He's quite happy to just hang out in that gap. But we're not all blessed that way. So we've got to learn how to find a way to hang out in that gap. Now, the one thing I do want to make clear that traditionally, meditation is a tool to control the thoughts. It's not traditionally used to put you to sleep. Now, I know that many people want to learn meditation so that they can sleep better, and that will work, because the more you're not in this constant mind chatter, the better you will sleep. Now, is it wrong that you try and do some meditation in bed to help you fall asleep? Absolutely not. That if whatever works, works. But there is something, that we use quite successfully to help sleep, and that's relaxation. And we could say that relaxation is a form of meditation. And you true traditional yogis would say to you, well, no, they're two very separate things. You're supposed to be very alert in meditation, and relaxation is to help you drift off to maybe sleep. So they are two different states. But, for simplest terms, and certainly in the beginning, anything you can do to quieten your brain is a wonderful thing. It's a form of meditation. It's all good. Whether it puts you to sleep or whether you're very alert, it's still a wonderful, wonderful thing. So, how do you meditate? First thing, I think I've already said it, there are no expectations. You cannot go into a meditation with expectations because you're just overthinking it. So that we definitely have no expectations. You do want to make sure that you will not be interrupted. So you got to have your phones in another room upstairs, a long way away, so that you are not tempted to take a sneaky look. You don't have to be lying down. Traditionally, meditation is done seated, but most people start lying down, because if I get people to sit for meditation, they're just going to be focused on, oh, my hip, oh, my lower back, everything's hurting, and they won't be actually meditating. They'll just be thinking. So the rule is just be comfortable. Whether you're lying, you're seated, just be comfortable. I used to meditate for about 20 minutes while my kids were having their music lessons, because it was a 30-minute lesson. I couldn't go anywhere. I used to go in my car, and it was perfect. It was a great place to just sit and meditate. So you can do it anywhere. And obviously, in the beginning, it's going to help you if there's no noise. As you get used to doing it more and more, I actually use my meditation when I'm in a place where there's just too much noise for me. So, but in the beginning, that's not normally good. People can't focus because of all the noise. So, you may want to have a quiet place, no phones, no expectations, and be very, very comfortable. Shall we do some meditation? Let's do a little bit. So tonight, I'm going to introduce you to 3 different meditations, because we're all different, and you might connect with one better than the other. So the first meditation, if you're seated, maybe you want to try it seated, or if you want to go and lie down, please feel free to do that. I do want you to be comfortable wherever you are. Let me just fix that. I see somebody's not muted. Sorry about that. Nope. One more time. Let's get that. All right. So find a place. If you are seated, you need the spine to be long. So you want to maybe sit on your buttock bones, so you can actually feel the buttock bones, so that you're not collapsed in the breastbone. So we're just going to sit, and we're going to sit on the buttock bones. So usually on a chair, that means you're sitting at the front of the chair, because then you can sit nice and tall. The number one thing is to close your eyes, because you want to remove all that stimulation. So if you could please close your eyes. So you're seated, eyes are closed. As you close your eyes, you are removing yourself from the sense of judgment and the exterior stimulation. Rest the tongue into the bottom of the mouth. Let the jaw hang loose. And as you rest your tongue into the bottom of the mouth, you are removing yourself from negative speech of yourself or of others. Our meditation is going to be focusing on the breath. We're going to start inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. Notice the breath in the nostrils as you inhale and as you exhale. Feel the breath in the nostrils as you inhale and you exhale. Now feel that breath rise through the front of the body, up through the chest. Feel the chest expand. And as you exhale, feel softness. Try to lengthen that inhalation. Lengthen the exhalation. And feel your breath rise all the way up to the upper chest towards your collarbones before you exhale. And now as you inhale, count slowly to 4. Exhale, count slowly to 4. Four counts slowly in. 4 counts slowly out. And perhaps you need to see the counts or the numbers in your brain. Perhaps you need to hear the counts in the brain. And if you notice that you've gone off into thought, notice what you've done and just bring your attention back to 4 counts. Inhale, 4 counts. Exhale. over and over. Notice if you've gone off into thought. Bring your attention back. 4 counts slowly in. 4 counts slowly out. Three more breaths. And then slowly open your eyes. So that was an 8-minute meditation. And for some of you that might felt like 80 minutes. And so for some of you that might have felt just 2 minutes. What probably would have happened during that meditation is that you were good, you were focused, you were concentrated, and then you went away somewhere thinking, and then you came back and you concentrated, and then you went away thinking, and then you came back. So that's a usual pattern in meditation, is that we are over here and then we're back focused, and then we lose it and then we come back. And the thing I want to highlight there is that that's completely normal, and that happens all the time. So, you know, for me, there'll be some days where I am really great in the meditation, and there are other days when I'm thinking and I have to come back, and then I'm thinking and I have to bring myself back. So there's never 2 days the same, and you should never judge yourself on how many times you were thinking. If you were thinking and you notice you were thinking, you've already interrupted the thoughts and you're already on a wonderful path. So that meditation was simply the 4-count breath. It's an easy meditation to do if you're feeling stressed, if you're overthinking, if you need something to interrupt the thoughts. That's a great technique to do that. So may I just quickly ask if there are any questions at this stage, or you have any comments from the meditation that you've just done, and please feel free to unmute yourself or pop it in the chat if you don't want to ask it verbally. And then I'll address a couple of questions now, and then we'll move on to the second meditation. So if there's a question, just unmute yourself and throw it in. I don't want you to try and remember that question later, so feel free if you have a question, now is the time. If not, we will move on. Lovely.
Jessica, should you hold your breath either at when you breathe it in or out, or is it just all in or all out?
That's a great question, Greg. Thank you. When you're breathing, you want to allow a full cycle. There is a technique where we inhale and then hold, and then exhale and then hold. But you should never feel, the problem with the holds of the breath is that they can actually create anxiety, and we don't want to have an emotional reaction. So if you want to inhale and just pause at the end of the inhalation, that's a wonderful technique. We have a breath that we use that's a 10 count breath, where we breathe in for 4, we pause at the end of the breath for 2 counts, then we exhale for 4, and we pause at the end of the exhalation for 2 counts. So that's a good technique too. Does that answer the question, Greg?
It does. Thank you very much.
Great. A couple of questions in the chat. Marilyn asked, do I use mantras? That will actually be my 3rd meditation tonight. So we will be getting to the mantras. And then another question is there a time of day that is better for this? In a traditional world, meditation was practiced first thing in the morning, because the mind is usually quieter in the morning before the stimulation of the day. But we use meditation now in our Western world to help handle the speed and the energy of our daily life. So I would say meditate when you need to. And if that happens to be in the middle of the day because you can feel that you're a little bit anxious, or you're a little bit angry, or you're a little bit frustrated, then do it anytime in the day. If you want to use it as a way of assisting your sleep, then do it as part of your nighttime routine. So in answer to that question, anytime you need it is when we would actually do that. Okay, so I'm just going to check the chat, make sure I've not missed anything. Wonderful. So we'll move on and we'll try our next meditation. And the next meditation, I'm going to use sounds. And I think one thing I haven't shared with you is that, commonly you'll see people advertising meditation and you might be focused on a candle, or you might be focused on some sound. The thing to highlight there, all meditations, whether it's a candle, whether it's sound, whether it's breath, whether it's a mantra, all meditations have the same goal. And that's to take the brain from the thinking over here and to bring it to something that it's going to solely focus on. And if you're solely focusing on that candle, or you're solely focusing on your breath, then you're no longer thinking. And you've achieved what you need to achieve, which is hanging out in that gap. So it would be fair to say that meditation is focused concentration. But it's not focused concentration reading a book or studying, because that is feeding the brain, that's stimulation. So that's concentration for stimulation. Hope that makes sense. We're doing concentration so that there's no stimulation. Okay, so our next concentration will be using the breath again, but we're actually going to do connect to the sounds of the breath. So once again, you may choose to lie down and be comfortable, especially if you did the other one seated, or you may choose to stay seated. If you do naturally cross your legs when you're seated, could I please ask that you cross them in the other way now, just so that you're balancing your hips while you're spending this time with me. So tall spine, shoulders down the back body, nice and long. Hands can be wherever you're comfortable. I know, You've seen meditation where they're holding different fingers, and that's really just to continue the flow of energy. But all you need to think about is, how can I be comfortable so I don't start thinking about my body? Eyes closed. Eyelids soft. Tongue in the bottom of the mouth. Relax the facial muscles and let go of your jaw. Start by finding your breath. Inhaling and exhaling through the nose. As you inhale through the nose, I want you to invite a bright, vibrant color rising up and over the body. As you inhale through the nose, envisage a bright, vibrant color washing over the body, rising up through the body. Now, as you notice your breath, we are breathing in and out through the nose. Now, as you inhale through the nose, can you connect to the vibration of sound that the inhalation creates? It's a bit like a breeze or a wind. It's very subtle. It's in the nostrils. And the vibration of sound is actually the sound of sa, S-A, sa. So think about vibrational sound of sa as you inhale. And the sound will last the length of your inhalation. Hearing that sound at the back of the nostrils. Now, as you exhale, the vibrational sound is the sound of ha, H-A. And it's not that forced, exaggerated Darth Vader sound, but it is very similar. And that sound should resonate at the back of the nose in the throat. So the inhalation sound is in the nostrils, and the exhalation sound is at the back of the nostrils in the throat. So find those sounds. Sounds of your inhalation and your exhalation. if your mind has begun to wander, come back to the concentration, the sound of your inhale and exhale. Five more breaths. Focus. Then normal breathing. And slowly open your eyes. Notice how you feel. Notice that peace around you. So that meditation was using the sounds, connecting to the sounds. And we traditionally use the nasal breathing. And the reason we use nasal breathing is it's a lot more controlled. So it actually slows you down and actually gives that, there's a more of a connection to the nervous system. So it actually relaxes you better. It's not wrong to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth, because the mouth is going to give you a greater sound. So some people who are very auditorial might enjoy So that's, one way of playing with it. That louder sound in your own mind might allow you to stay more focused. The thing I find with the exhalation through the mouth is that can make people feel quite dizzy, because there's a lot of air coming out, because obviously the space which you're exhaling through is a lot greater. So, you might want to do a couple of those and then go back to the nasal passageway, which is what we traditionally use to breathe, because it's calming and it's impactful on the nervous system. So any questions on that one before we move to our third and final one? Or any questions at all, again, related to what we've done so far, feel free to unmute. Okay, we're good. Okay, so the third and final meditation is going to be using mantras. And mantras in yoga philosophy, it just means positive self-talk, positive reinforcement, positive affirmations. That's what a mantra is. That's just a traditional name for it. So doing a positive mantra is a positive affirmation. They do need to be pretty simple, and they usually flow with the rhythm of the breath. Now, I'm going to ask you, if possible, if your space allows you to lie down for the final mantra. And while we make that transition, I want to show you a pose that you can use if your goal is about sleep. So if you're wanting to pick up techniques of how you can get back to sleep if you've woken in the middle of the night, then what we use in our sleep therapy is a pose called legs up the wall. And I'll just quickly show it to you. And those of you who come to my yoga classes will certainly know this one. So with the legs up the wall, you know, I've done this in bed, having my legs up the headboard. I've done this where I've just flopped out of bed, found the closest wall and thrown the legs up. What this does is it obviously reverses the blood flow. It takes the pressure off the heart, which becomes very soothing for the nervous system. And what we're also doing is bringing the blood down to try and flush the brain, so we can bring more blood up here, then we invite the brain to relax. So, you know, it's the middle of the night, you're trying to get back to sleep, throw yourself into this position, maybe do one of those breath techniques, 4 counts in, 4 counts out, or maybe the sound of the breath, and do your meditation in this position. And then you've got the body also working to calm the brain as well as you with your meditation. Okay, that's not what we're doing right now though. That's just a bonus. What we're going to do right now is try and elevate your heart. Because in the process of mental stability and mental activity, there is a direct relationship to your heart and the position of your heart. Usually when you're overthinking, you're worried, you're angry, you're sad, there's always a drop in the heart chakra. Because you're not listening to your heart, you're certainly not listening to your gut. And when you drop your heart, you drop your gut. So these two areas are now out of commission, and you're very dominant in your head. And even if you see angry people, you know, their posture is so collapsed, but they're very forward because they're very driven here. And this has no play in your decision making or your actions. So I'm going to try and change that with the last meditation tonight. If you can, if you have access to a towel or a cushion off the couch or a throw or a blanket on the couch, I'm just rolling it up and I'm placing it across the mat. If you have access to another cushion, a blanket or a towel, you would have that on the floor. You don't need to be on a yoga mat, you could just be on the floor anywhere. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put you in a position where you lie over this support so that your arms and your shoulders are down on the floor, and so is your head. But can you see how it's elevated the heart chakra? It's also a really good way of trying to fix your posture. So if you are trying to do this, the position is that the support is across your bra strap. And gentlemen, I know you don't wear a bra, but I'm sure you've undone a few in your time. So you should be able to envisage where it would go. Right across the shoulder blades, arms out to the side. Now, if you're not in this position, if you're still seated, that's still fabulous. If you're lying down on the floor, that's also fabulous. But if you are lying on the floor or with me, I need you to pay attention to your head. It is so important that your chin is not protruding up higher than your forehead, because you'll be stressing your neck. So enough support under your head so that your chin and your forehead are parallel. Find your space. If your arms are out to the side, your palms of your hands are facing up so that you are open to receive. Your shoulders are falling back. If at any time during the meditation you do not feel comfortable on this support, please lie flat on your back. Close your eyes. Tongue into the bottom of the mouth. Relax your jaw. Relax your throat. Relax your neck. Relax your shoulders. Bring your mind to your breath. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. As you inhale, try to lengthen that inhalation. As you exhale, lengthen the exhalation. And as you inhale, feel the breath rise up the front of the body. And as you exhale, let the body go. Now, in your mind's eye, as you inhale and exhale, you say to yourself, I am powerful. I am powerful. Over and over with each exhalation, I am powerful. I am powerful. 3 more times. This time, in your mind's eye, you say to yourself, I am free. I am free. With each exhalation. Two more times. This time, in your mind's eye, you say to yourself, I choose not to suffer. I choose not to suffer. With each breath, I choose not to suffer. Two more times. This time, in the mind's eye, you say to yourself, I am calm. I am calm. I am calm. Two more times. Normal breathing. Arms feel heavy. Legs feel heavy. Notice the feelings of letting go. Now gently moving the fingertips. Bending your knees. Roll to the right hand side and push yourself slowly up. And if you've been on that support, you might feel a little bit stiff in your upper back. That's normal. But all of you should feel like the energy has come down a few steps. What you've done if you were lying over those supports is that you've brought your heart chakra up and you've humbled the brain. So you should feel really quite mellow. You should feel really quite nice. And the mantras that we use, the positive affirmations, I really didn't have a plan of what they would be. It was more of, you know, I always use my mantras in the moment, what vibe I pick up. And that can be the same for yourself. What do you need on a given day? And let your inner quietness guide you. I think the important thing to remember is that you do need to do that little bit of relaxation first, where you relax your eyes, you relax your tongue, you relax your throat, you relax your shoulders. So you're kind of preparing yourself for the meditation. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me open the floor again in case there's any questions. No question is a silly question. Often You know, we're always taught that if you've got that question and you ask it, then you're really asking it for 20 other people as well. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask me, then please feel free to unmute yourself. Are you all just too shy? Are you just too zenned out now that you're not thinking, which is great. You're not thinking, so you can't think of your question. That means we've achieved what we wanted to achieve tonight. And you can interrupt me at any time. So unmute yourself and interrupt me at any time. So to summarize what we did tonight, we introduced ourselves to a technique called labeling our different egos so we can notice the different states that we're living in throughout the day. We also talked about how can we interrupt that ego state. So if I am frustrated Frida or frustrated Frank, if I start to notice that and label it, I've already interrupted it. And then if I counter it with, well, what if it's going to be okay? Or, you know, whatever I'm frustrated about, this is not going to work. What if it does work out? So use that what if counter. So that's a technique that you do on a daily basis, just to be mindful of what ego you're living in. Then the other technique we addressed was the meditation as a tool to interrupt the thoughts so we can hang out in that gap, that space of static where we're not thinking. And then maybe if we're not thinking, we might be able to sleep better, but we'll also be able to respond better to life. And that really is why meditation is there, so that we can stay grounded and not be up here. And, you know, I monitor my energy and I feel the rise, and I'm very, very sensitive to somebody else's energy and their rise. And sometimes we can't escape that energy because maybe we work with them or we live with them or they're our best friend, or, you know, and their energy will rise your energy as well. So it is really important that you recognize the energy, you recognize where you're at, and that you use a meditation to help bring you down. Just interrupt those thoughts and you'll feel like you hopefully feel now, which is a little bit calmer. So I hope you enjoyed the session. My name is Simone. I absolutely love the brain. I absolutely love yoga. I'm still addicted to fitness as well, but I think as a whole package, if you can maintain the health of your brain, you can do anything. If you can maintain the health of your body can come along for the ride. So you got to treat yourself as more than just this physical body. Listen to this. By quietening this, life will be so much more simple and so much more fulfilling. Thank you so, so much, everybody. Any questions? I'll stick around. I wish you a wonderful rest of the evening, and I hope you have a lovely sleep tonight. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. No problem. I know it's because I'm using Jessica's account, so I know Jessica's name shows up there. No problem at all. Thank you, Nancy. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you, Joni. I'm glad you liked it. Thanks, Marilyn. Maybe I'll see you in my yoga. And those of you who've never done my yoga before, I teach every Saturday at 11:30 and also on a Tuesday at 10:15. So if you're scared of yoga, maybe now you've met somebody who's normal, you might be willing to give it a try. Thank you. Thank you so much for your lovely comments. Thanks, Patty. Nice to see you. Thanks, Wendy. Hope you can use them. Thanks, Sandy. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for coming. Hi, Pam. Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Rob. So nice to see you both sat there. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Keith. Hope you enjoyed it. Glad. Yes, I guess this English voice does have its place. Thanks, Marilyn. We'll see you next time.